Hello, everyone. This is Dean Buchek, your host for the Magic at Dinner podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about my friend Leo Behnke, who passed away at the age of 90 on November 7th of this year, 2023. I first met Leo in 1994. I had just been hired by David Copperfield at 26 years old to take care of his warehouse in Las Vegas and to support the tour as it traveled, 400 miles a night. At the time, he didn't have a stationary presence like he does today at the MGM Grand. Leo was in charge of curating David's library and museum, which mostly consisted of a very large collection of magic from John Mulholland. A little known fact about Leo becoming the curator of David's museum and library is that he wasn't the first. Ricky Jay had been hired by David to do the work, and he only did it for a short time before leaving David's employ and Leo taking over the job. And then I believe a few months later was when I moved out to Las Vegas and took over the job of taking care of David's warehouse. Leo was a great help to me because I was pretty green behind the ears, hadn't done a whole lot in my life work wise anyway. I was only 26 years old, and Leo had been around forever and had worked with everyone. He'd worked with Mark Wilson on the Magic Land of Alakazam. He had been the manager at the Disneyland Magic Shop when it initially opened. And as many of you may have read out there, he hired a teenage boy to demonstrate tricks behind the counter. And the kid ended up being pretty good at it and later would become the great Flydini. It was Steve Martin who got his first job from Leo at that magic shop. I remember when Leo told me that. That was pretty interesting. Leo and I worked on David Copperfield 15 Years of Magic, the TV special. We had spent a week in San Bernardino at Norton Air Force Base. Clinton had started closing up the bases, and that was the first one. And we shot the special in a huge, huge aircraft hangar. And it was quite a week. Leo and I roomed together at a local hotel. And then during the day, we'd put in, very long days helping out on set. And Leo was in charge of a massive collection of ephemera and little props and different things that we had brought from David's library that would be used if you've ever seen the show and you see all the little magic props, all of those are actually from David's collection. And we had them locked up at night, every night. And during the day, we would bring them out as required. And some of the props were, very large ones, like the Orson Welles sawing that David owned. We also hand carried around the Robert Houdin automata that you saw in the shows. That was a very nerve-wracking experience because the film crews and the stagehands obviously were not going to have the same respect for all of these props that Leo and I did. And we knew that, in the case of an automaton, it could be worth, several $100,000 because there are only a few of them left of that particular one. It was a tough week, but we got through it, and Leo was very helpful and supportive to me. He was kind of like a father to me out there. He was 35 years older than me, which I didn't even realize. And, at the time, he was just the guy I worked with, the guy I counted on, and I didn't ever ask him, "Hey, Leo, how old are you?" But, so because it really didn't matter to me. He was a very, very smart man who could answer your questions about almost anything, not just magic. It was very worldly, and he had been in the Navy. He served on a submarine for 4 years, which was very interesting. And he actually introduced me to Michael Skinner. He took me out to dinner one night at a Cantonese restaurant that was at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas. The restaurant's name was Lily Langtree's, and Leo took me there, and he and Michael were good friends, and Michael came to the table and sat with us and showed us some tricks. Now, this was later in Michael's life, and he had been known for not taking, medication that he needed, and so his hands were very shaky, but the magic was still very good, and he was a very sweet man. It was nice to meet such a legend instead of only reading about him or hearing about him from somebody else. So that was a neat experience that wouldn't have happened without Leo taking me. Leo had always lived out west, mostly in California, and he loved the warm weather. He hated cold weather, he hated rain, wanted no part of it. Well, here I am there, the country bumpkin from Indiana. In the 2 years I spent out there, I think it rained once. I ran out the back of the warehouse where the bay doors were, where the trucks would come in and get loaded, and I was running out into the parking lot, with kind of the "I'm king of the world" kind of hands out. Actually, that was probably a couple years before Tenet came out, so but so I probably did it before Leonardo DiCaprio did. Maybe he got it from me, who knows? I won't call him on it. But it's raining, and it only rained for 15 minutes, and it was raining pretty hard, and, I mean, I got my face up in the air just getting, my face wet, and I looked back at one point at the bay doors, and Leo is just standing there with his arms folded, and he is shaking his head at me like, "Oh my gosh, who is this hayseed?" And he just turned when as he turned away, he was grinning, and I gave him a hard time about it when I went back in. I'm like, "Come on, it's raining." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I live out here, so I don't have to put up with rain." I said but it was a funny moment that I remember with Leo. We didn't hang out a whole lot because we each had 1 day off a week, and it was a different day so that there could always be someone at the warehouse because we would get faxes or calls from the tour wherever they were at, and we would often have to, fulfill a request of something that the crew might need, and we'd have to do it, we fairly quickly. And if at least one of us wasn't there, we wouldn't be able to do it. And it may have been something as simple as, "Hey, David's got a photo shoot and he needs this particular leather jacket that he likes to wear for this kind of photo shoot, and it's an interview. Dean, you need to send this jacket to where we're going to be tomorrow performing in Cincinnati, Ohio. Get the stuff sent overnight." Sometimes it would have to be there within a few hours. I had to go to the airport, put something on a plane that was taking off and get there even quicker. Leo wrote about, geez, about 50 books. He wrote a, book on, I think, like thread magic and close-up magic and, this kind of magic and that kind of magic. Books on theory, books on, how to take care of things, in a library situation, like the moisture and humidity in a room and how do you take care of ephemera and playing cards if you store them and things like that. So he was a real expert at that kind of stuff. I remember the day I left Vegas for good. I was moving back to Indianapolis, and I drove to Norm Nielsen's house because I had a poster of his, and I wanted to get it signed before I left town. And I went to Norm's house. I'd never been there before, and he showed me his poster collection and all the kind of, his stone lithos and things that he owned was really pretty cool. His house was beautiful, immaculate. I remember his kitchen. It was so clean, it looked like nobody ever ate there. There was only one little piece of something, it was on the counter. He was working on something, it was, of course, a violin, and the guts of it were spilled out, kind of spilled out, you could tell, he was tinkering, something was happening, otherwise, everything was pretty clean there. he was a wonderful man, and he signed my poster for me, and I went back to the warehouse, and I was getting ready to leave, jump in my, 1992 teal Chevy Cavalier, and I was gonna, get started on the way driving home back east, and I was pretty upset that day. I'd worked really hard. I was proud of the work that I had done. I was gonna miss Leo a whole bunch. I remember hugging him, and then I remember him grabbing me by the arms, with his left and right hand. He just kind of slapped his hands on my shoulders, and he said, "Kid, you did good." Leo was a legend that nobody really knew. He's one of the original Magic Castle magicians. He was the first person to ever lecture at the castle. So he had done a lot of things, but he didn't draw a lot of attention to himself, and he preferred things that way, just helping out other magicians get better what they do, or, in the case of, David Copperfield, or in the case of Mark Wilson, helping out the big guys. He didn't need the fame and the accolades. He was content with helping out in the background, and that was that. As long as he could make a decent living doing that, he was okay. He was a huge, huge magic geek, and if you got him talking about a topic, he could really teach you something great, and he knew how to talk about something so that it was interesting, and he had a very warm, rich, deep voice that I'll never forget. And, Leo, wherever you are, I'm gonna miss you, man. We kept touch a little bit over the years. Every once in a while, we'd talk on the phone, or I'd write him a letter, or send him an email. Leo is mentioned in the Magic in Mind ebook that is put out by Vanishing Ink Magic. It's a story. I won't give it away because it's pretty cool. I want you to go read it. It's about him and Rick Johnson, the author of The Two Perfect Theory. And that's the essay, actually, The Two Perfect Theory, where it's mentioned about a ploy that Leo and Rick used to fool some magicians at the Magic Castle. I thought it was pretty cool. That's all I really wanted to say today, is that I'm going to miss Leo. He was a good man. I think I'm a better person for having have known him and worked with him. If you haven't looked up some of his materials and books, some of them are a bit dated. If they were written in the 60s or 70s, they might be a little dated. Some of them are a little more modern, but it's all very interesting and very crisply written and produced. You won't find a typo. You just will not find a typo anywhere, a misspelled word or anything like that. Leo, he was just good, and I will miss him very, very much. Godspeed, Leo. It was great knowing you.